Hello, I'm Kats, and welcome back to the free-to-play review. Now, it's clear that it is winter time in the game to Christmas time in the game, as you can see by the lovely Christmassy themed background. And in such fashion, we are here to talk about the Yuletide Titan event, which is, I guess, an annual thing, perhaps. We had one last year featuring Torm in the Cold as the top prize, and we have another one this year, which is featuring Sir Nick, Santa himself, as the top reward. Now, by this point, I think we're all fairly familiar with Titan events, but in case anyone is fairly new checking out the channel, welcome, first of all. But if you are new, the way this works is that you complete events and tournaments just like you would normally do in the game. There are going to be milestones that you have to reach in order to get snow points, and if you collect enough of them, you can get all the way through all of the milestones through to Sir Nicholas himself at 2000. Now, I've personally always been a fan of these events. They're kind of like mini fusions in terms of difficulty, so it is going to take some amount of resources, but the rewards you get are sometimes stuff that's hard to come by, or you might get stuff that is difficult for you to farm otherwise. So if we take a quick scroll through, you can see we get some gems and ancient shards, some mortal soul coins, a void shard, some energy, some medium tier oil, player points for the player points program towards Sersha, the shard, immortal soul coins, legendary chaos ore 5-star, we get some medium extract and lower extract, a primal shard, a sacred shard, which is fairly cheap, an immortal soul stone, some immortal soul essence, 6-star chaos ore, epic, 500 energy, 100 gems, a 5-star speed glyph, 6-star speed glyph, a cool frame, 100 super oil, 6-star, the list goes on basically, but a lot of the rewards are very, very solid, and I think a lot of people could benefit from going for them. However, I will not sit here and say that this is an easy thing to do. It's going to take a decent amount of effort and a decent amount of resources. So a couple things to establish out of the gate are that, yes, the Sir Nicholas can be unlocked at 2,000 points, but of course you don't necessarily have to go out that far. The total amount of points available from all the events and tournaments is actually 2,500, and so you can overshoot it by a decent amount. And on top of that, you also have 500 that you're getting for free just by logging in every day up until Christmas, I believe. So essentially, you can skip 500 from the events and tournaments that are going to be live in the game, and you're getting a free 500 credit just by playing the game normally, logging in every day. In other words, you'd only have to put in 1,500 points worth of effort in order to get all the way out to the last milestone, which is the normal maximum amount for a Titan event. In terms of the pros here, you do get one of each type of the major shards, which is pretty nice. Again, primals and sacreds might be harder to come by than anything else, and it's a decent reward or return on investment. Mythical skill tomes are most certainly hard to come by unless you're like winning Hydro Clash regularly, and so getting out there for a mythical tome would be nice. And of course, if you don't have Sir Nicholas, hey, he could be a free-ish Void Legendary champion for your account. Now, that being said, he's not the most useful Void Legendary in the game. I think last year's Tormund definitely takes the cake in terms of utility versus, countering speed meta, countering speed teams, buffing teams, etc. Sir Nick is, kind of an unkillable adjacent champion, even though that's a fairly outdated method of fighting the clan boss nowadays. But nonetheless, depending on where you are in the game, then getting a free, air quotes, Sir Nicholas could be monumental for your account and your progression. So it kind of depends on where you are and on how far you're willing to go. And like I said earlier, you can kind of pick and choose how far you want to go. So if you don't really care about him, then you only focus on events that get you out to the Sacred Shard, for example, which could mean that you could skip all of the summoning events and thus not making it a net loss of shards overall, or you can only go for the primal shard. But just keep in mind that essentially logging in every day will get you 500 points, which means you're guaranteed bare minimum to walk away with everything up to the void shard just by playing the game, not doing any of the events. So in my case, what is my plan? Well, as usual, I am going to be maxing it out just because I have an abundance of resources that make it possible for me to do that, being an endgame player despite being free to play. Although admittedly, it is kind of a bummer because this will be my third Sir Nicholas, so we can head over here to the Faction Guardian Sacred Order. So I already have 2 copies of Sir Nick, and yeah, it would just be a third duplicate. But never know, maybe I'll get a 4th one. I'll get unlucky/lucky, depending on how you look at it. I'll get a 4th one in some future state, and then that will be 4 slots filled up in the Faction Guardians. So Void Legendaries, of course, are extremely hard to come by, and so I would hesitate to pass this up, even if I don't intend to use a 3rd copy. And just like how I do with the fusion events, I do like to take a snapshot of my supply count at the start of Titan events and summarize how they've changed over the course of the event with a post on my community tab page. And so the snapshot we'll be taking here is around 98 million on the silver and then 5,700 on the gems, and we'll just see how it shakes out over the course of the next 2 weeks. Another thing to consider consider when it comes to these Titan events is that typically there is a bonus summon rush sort of thing going on that's a part of it. Obviously, we have the current one going on that is part of the fusion, but also extends beyond into getting some of the snow points. As you can see here, 3,500 points. I wouldn't consider this to be the bonus one. The bonus one is usually midweek, so most likely it would be next week or the following week, usually on like Tuesday, Wednesday time frame, and it's just going to be another summon rush, kind of like this one, where you're going to have to pull some amount of shards in order to get snow points. And the reason I call it a bonus summon rush is because you'd have to do that in addition to most likely getting some amount of points from this summon rush, as well as the champion chase, which should go on next weekend. So just keep that in mind if you're trying to max it out. That's typically what is required. So far, the worst bonus summon rush we've seen had the highest milestone at 4,500 points, i.e. 9 sacreds or the equivalent thereof. But before you freak out, that one was most certainly special because it had a bunch of bonus events going on, and there's plenty of historical precedents for maximum milestones of like 3,500 and 4,000. So it could be anywhere between 7 to 9 sacreds in terms of the bonus summon rush that we'll see sometime in the near future. In terms of my particular strategy when it comes to Titan events is that I try to get as many points up front as possible. That way the tail end is a little bit easier, just because unlike a fusion, we don't exactly have a calendar, so we don't know all of the events that are going to be featuring points. And I typically like to skip things that are heavily RNG favored, such as like Paths of Light and or Decks of Fate, because we don't know how those will be structured in terms of how you acquire points, and bad sources of points can make it a lot more expensive and or complicated to complete. So there you have it. That's going to do it for the free-to-play review of the Yuletide Titan event for 2024. Let me know in the comment section down below which of the milestones you plan to go for, 2, 3, 4, or 5. My formal recommendation is to get as far as you can, go within reason. Of course, it depends on how far you've progressed into the game. If that realistic goal is only 900 points, then hey, you still walk away with a primal shard. If you can get out to 1,400, I think that's probably like the best bang for your buck overall. You can get yourself a sacred shard on top of everything else. And then if you're an overachiever like myself, you can get all the way out to 2,000 points. Best of luck achieving whichever milestone you are going for. And as always, if you did find this video helpful, then be sure to hit that like button down below. It really does help out the channel. And also feel free to hit the subscribe button down below if you are enjoying the content on this channel for more content like this one in the future. Thanks for watching and have a good one.